Hey out there, everybody. Hi, I'm Shelly Schmalz, Director of Community here at Stage 32. And if this is your first time tuning in, Stage 32 is the global leader for entertainment education and networking and marketplace in the entertainment industry with almost 1 million members strong and 2,500 hours of educational resources. Stage 32 is the platform to be on if you want to do anything creative in film, television, theater. We service above the line, below the line, and we just want to connect people into their creative universe. I'm so excited today to be speaking with Lynn Santer, who is in Australia, Brisbane, Australia. So she's literally a day ahead of me here in Atlanta, Georgia. And Lynn is an internationally acclaimed film producer, best-selling author. She wrote her first story and sent it in when she was 9 years old. Um, from there, she qualified for degrees in finance and law from the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology and the University of Sydney. She's a creative ninja with novels, and she's a ghostwriter for celebrity biographies. She's done theater production. Lynn's been in television and obviously film. And that's what we're here to speak with Lynn today, is about her latest documentary, Land of the Free and Out of the Shadows, a documentary featuring and exposing big game hunting. And I'm so excited to talk to you today, Lynn, because documentaries, especially documentaries that promote social change, are really dear to my heart. And I'm just so excited to speak with you about how your journey into making this film and the impact that it's had. So welcome. If you'd like to expand on your introduction and tell everybody a little bit more about who you are and how you got to where you are now, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, well, that was quite an expansive and generous introduction. Thank you very much. And obviously, thank you for having me at this interview. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to explain this particular project. But as to how I got into this, well, it really started when I was a small child, probably even before I sent that story to a publisher when I was 9 years old. My father was a pharmaceutical chemist working in international research, perhaps ironically, given what I'm about to say. And consequently, he spent quite a bit of time in Africa. And whenever he would visit Africa on business, and at the time we as a family were living in London, I'm born and raised in London, he would travel with a very small suitcase of clothes and a very large suitcase of Super 8 camera gear, as it was at the time, because his profession might have been pharmaceuticals, but his passion was wildlife and film, to the extent that he had actually built a full-blown cinema in the attic of our London home. A local cinema had closed down, and he had purchased the cinema seats, the usherette seats, the screens. He had built a projection room for himself. He had sound effects from the BBC, and he would make David Attenborough-style documentaries. And I mean, these are mesmerizing to anybody in any event. But when you're a little girl and your daddy made them, and you're watching them in the attic cinema of your London home, there was something particularly magical and magnetic about these films. And that was where my passion truly began, both for wildlife and conservation and for filmmaking.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that must have been so wonderful growing up. And so did your dad teach you a lot about filmmaking at that point? Were you interested in learning the stories? I mean, obviously you're a storyteller and learning how, what to do behind the camera.
Uh, he did. I mean, I would ask my father millions of questions about millions of things, including his professional work. We had long philosophical discussions about some of the things he was doing in his research. As I said, there's a certain irony about all of this, which I'm sure you can appreciate. But he was a man who lived for the greater good, and would always stand up for justice against injustice. And I like to think that I follow his values in that regard. When he tragically passed 17 years ago, the words we heard consistently from people were integrity, courage, valor, the words you don't commonly hear, and we'd hear them over and over again. So I strive to live by his standards. He was also a perfectionist. He would spot a spelling mistake walking past me at 10 paces, which was intensely annoying as a child. And he obviously encouraged my storytelling, which began in crayons on my bedroom wall when I was very young. So my parents soon decided they needed to keep me supplied with pens and paper, or they'd be redecorating permanently. And then, of course, graduated into that first fateful submission at the age of 9, at which time they told me I needed a proper career, by the way. I shouldn't go into something as hairy-fairy as the arts. So I did, in fact, study, as you mentioned, commerce, finance, law. But ultimately, the creative side and the conservation side won out. But it took a real twist in 2001 when I was planning a fundraiser, an awareness raiser for big cat conservation on the Gold Coast of Australia. And I received an email from somebody I'd never heard of in my life, a lady called Meryl Harrison, who was then the chief inspector with the Zimbabwe SPCA, who had fought incredibly hard against Herculean odds to get an amendment to the Wildlife Act through there to prevent the trophy hunting of endangered leopards with packs of hounds that were trained with electric shock collars, luring the leopard with live bait. Now, there are half a dozen different layers of cruelty in that sentence.
Right.
And she had finally been successful. And within days, Safari Club International, which is the largest and most powerful and most prestigious trophy hunting group in the world, had managed to, shall we say, persuade the Zimbabwean government they couldn't overturn the amendment, but what they did was they put in special conditions that they could continue to hunt this animal by this method, provided it was only a certain number, provided that a member of National Parks and Wildlife oversaw the hunt, provided it was filmed for scientific purposes, and so forth. That was in 2001. None of those conditions were ever met, and the amendment is still in place to this day. So it was all an absolute furphy, I'm sorry to say. And Meryl sent out this cry for help to everyone involved in wildlife conservation in the world. And here was I working on the other side of the planet on a spare bed, from a spare bedroom, quite frankly. And I had Tippi Hedren coming out from Hollywood to front this event. And I was pretty overwhelmed just in the organization of that. And thought, what could I possibly do as a single person on the other side of the planet, etc. And so, but I said, I'm just not going to do what I know everybody else is going to do and say this is shocking and evil, but it's too overwhelming. And, what can one person do? And you'd be amazed what one person really can do when they are as determined as I turned out to be. So I went out and found myself some ex-Special Forces commandos, as one does if one lives in a James Bond film. My poor mother was having 63 kittens, 4 puppies, and a hernia, wondering if I was going to be jumped on by the CIA or somebody from Zimbabwe when I went out to collect the mail. And I said to these chaps, look, I don't know if you're hunters yourselves. And one of them, in a particularly deep, gravelly voice, looked at me and said, let me stop you right there. I have never shot anything but a human in my life. And I went, okay. All right, well, moving on. This is the mission. Can you do it? Would you do it? And we made an agreement. I then contacted Tippi and I said, look, I know you thought you were coming out just to front a nice glitzy fundraiser in Australia, but, and how do you feel about this? She said, I'm in, without a moment's hesitation. So then I contacted Meryl, who didn't know me from a flying peanut either. And I said, hello, Meryl, this is Lynn Santa at the end of the earth, Australia. I'm having this big glitzy event with this Hollywood movie star, but I received your email and I think it's shocking and I want to do something about it. So I've hired these ex-Special Forces commandos and we want to plan an undercover mission to expose what's really going on. And we want to bring you out to Australia to have a meeting to plan how to do this. Seriously, Shelley, she must have thought I was on drugs.
Wow.
I thought I was on drugs.
Wow. I mean, that's such a huge just a leap of faith undertaking with a huge celebrity, with a, you know, a government organization. And did you, I mean, was your inkling that this was going to be just a very short documentary where you were going to, you know, expose maybe one or two points and then get it out? Or did you know that this was going to be like a 20-year, or essentially a 20-year journey?
I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Had I known, I can't honestly say I wouldn't have done it, but I might have had a pause for thought. I might have gone about it a different way because it did commence a 20-plus-year odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the obstacles we had to overcome, oh my goodness. I mean, Meryl faced death threats. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
she literally faced the pointed end of an axe more than once. Her
Mm-hmm.
twin brother was literally beaten to death.
Wow. Well, so
Yes.
that's probably, you know, not the norm for most documentary films. You know, I think that you know, you very much you know, took on a topic that is provocative and you know, one that does elicit a lot of you know, a lot from both sides of advocacy. Um, and so, did you see your story change throughout the years? Like, how did you navigate that process as a storyteller and a documentarian when you saw a point where, you know, maybe you got, you know, so far into your film and then realized, oh, wait, we need to pivot? Like, how many moments of pivot did you have to take? And what did you do as a storyteller to kind of handle that?
Quite a few. I faced character assassinations here in Australia, and it took 5 years to get the first part of the story out onto network television. So that actually broke with Tippy Merrill and myself on the Nine Network in Australia and on ABC America in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And the lead journalist on that was a lady called Kirstine Lum, who has been part of this journey really since the beginning. And in our naivety, and in 2006, social media wasn't what it is today either.
Right.
Um, we thought we'd make a big noise and, you know, everyone would be outraged and that would be the end of the trophy hunting industry. Well, we learned differently because, yes, everybody was outraged and everybody made noise, and 2 days later, everybody had forgotten about it. So I said, well, okay, well, we didn't really think that one through properly. You know, what are we going to do now? So Tippy, Merrill, and myself agreed that my next step would be to write a novella slash feature film screenplay, dramatizing, not that it needed much dramatizing, the story of, you know, the Hollywood icon, the embattled conservationist in Zimbabwe, and the Australian socialite who joined forces with a jaded ex-special forces commando to expose brutal atrocities against endangered big game by some of the wealthiest people on earth. Because that sounds like a pretty good logline for a Hollywood film script, don't you think?
Yes.
So
Wow.
we wrote that, and Tippy and I launched the novella in the Grove in Los Angeles, and we followed that with a private screening of a very short, you know, 10-minute documentary, that a real life documentary that we'd made on the whole thing to sell the film rights, and we did option them immediately. And almost straight away, that option agreement evaporated because this fraternity, the trophy hunting fraternity, has octopus-like tentacles that,
Mhm.
you know, infiltrate every facet of life in some very subtle, clever, and
Mhm.
sometimes insidious ways. And they have all manner of techniques of persuading people to turn the other way. Um, so we just hit roadblock after roadblock after roadblock with the film, and you know, I never let go of it, but I had to get on with my life to some
Sure.
extent. So I'm going to fast forward to 2015 when Cecil the Lion was killed, because
Mhm.
that, of course, created an international
That was
furor.
a global, you know, call to action.
Exactly. And as tragic and evil as that death was, it resurrected interest in the subject in a manner that we had never seen before.
Mhm.
And of course, by then, social media had evolved considerably as well. So I took myself back to Hollywood. By then, I had also become very friendly with Priscilla Presley, and I knew I would be going to the Emmy Awards that year, so I had a special gown made by a designer friend of mine here in Australia with Cecil's head in the center of the gown, about this big.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Memory of Cecil written all around it. And I swear, Shelley, that outfit was photographed more than the Emmy winners that night in
Uh-huh.
Hollywood. And I met the man who became my production partner on the documentaries, who's Emmy nominated, James Guinier.
Hmm.
And James became my right arm and my rock, and I absolutely could not have done this without James, and also without the support of the Corman family, both
Hmm.
morally and financially. They have been a tremendous asset, and friends. I mean, they've just become lifelong friends now.
Hmm.
So we began to resurrect the feature film idea at that point, but it became very clear very quickly that this wasn't the way to go. So I say quickly, we're still talking a matter of years, when James said to me one day, you know what, we're going about this all wrong. Forget the dramatization. I mean, I'm a Hollywood film maker, but I'm not a documentary maker. I'm not a passion project. That's not who I am. I'm a good commercial. Um, but we're going about this wrong. We've got to tell the real story. We have to tell this in non-fiction documentary form. And then when we've got it cemented down like that, then maybe we can talk about doing the Hollywoodized, dramatized,
Hmm.
homogenized, pasteurized um, feature film action adventure version of the story. So I said, James, you're a genius. I agree. That's what we've got to do. So then that was a major pivot, because making a documentary had actually not entered my head
Hmm.
until that point.
But you
So,
still had all that film and that footage from previous, yeah, like from the
we
previous
did,
years.
yeah. I mean, the footage that you see in the documentary that's out now has partly come from those previous years. You'll see there's dates on it as it goes along,
Hmm.
which footage was taken in which years. And when we had to update it, and we had to get new covert footage, and we had to get people undercover in Las Vegas, we had to get people undercover in Tanzania, in
Hmm.
Zimbabwe, again, fresh, to make sure that because some of the main culprits that were involved back in 2001, I mean, three of the key signatories to a petition to Botswana from the Safari Club International to get them to overturn a ban that country had seen fit to put in place to
Hmm.
protect its endangered species. And this is one of the things that gets me about this group. They somehow think it is their God-given right to interfere with the policies of foreign sovereign nations.
Hmm.
And three of the key signatories on the petition in 2001 had died, or two of them had died, which was George Bush Sr. and General Norman Schwarzkopf. I mean,
Hmm.
minor names like that.
Right.
And the other one was Dan Quayle. So, we had to update it with the current players. And I mean, the poster boy today is
Hmm.
Donald Trump Jr. Donald
Hmm.
Trump Jr. actually led the charge for an auction this year,
Wow.
2022, in February 2022, for a highly endangered polar bear,
Hmm.
somebody to go and kill, to raise money to lobby the British government, to block a ban they have been trying to put into place to stop the import of trophy hunting
Wow. Yeah.
products in the United Kingdom. So, quite extraordinary that
Right.
this is what these people are doing. And all of that is on camera,
Hmm.
indisputable evidence,
Uh-huh.
among a lot of other things, in our current film, which has already won some significant awards.
As I
It had
could
its,
see with the laurels behind you. That's
yeah, that's some of them. Um,
so.
and
Can
we
you
had
tell?
our world,
Oh,
sorry,
I'm
go on.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Your world premiere?
I was in the House of Commons in London in June this year. and that was the precursor to the United Kingdom group's campaign to ban trophy hunting run by Eduardo Gonzalez, which passed on November 24th unopposed
Nice.
through the
Congratulations.
House of Commons. Thank you. So now the battle next year, which we're gearing up for now, is to get it passed through the House of Lords, which is going to be a harder battle, on its way to cementing it in legislation. And there's ways people can help with that, which we might get to in a moment. So sorry to have interrupted you.
Oh yeah, no. I guess my question is, how much did you were you able to use the calling card as a film as a way to speak to the local governments or the local politicians? Were you
Very
able
much.
to give them a screener of the film so they can talk and ask questions? Like how much was it able to kind of bridge that educational gap?
Oh, enormous. I mean, the picture paints 1,000 words. So actually seeing these things happening in real life, you know, it is full of documented and visual evidence that cannot be disputed. I mean, it is there right in front of your face.
So I mean,
Including information campaigns, including things that are truly jaw-dropping, honestly jaw-dropping. Some people just even, well, not perhaps now because there's been so much publicity about it, but until very recently, didn't even understand that shooting still took place with
mhm,
anything except a camera. But it's much more insidious
mhm,
than the mere bloodlust and ego, which, to my way of thinking, are inexcusable and unfathomable anyway. But
mhm,
it's far more insidious than that, as if that wasn't bad enough.
mhm. Do you have any just advice for documentarians who are looking to tackle difficult topics?
Never give up, never give in.
Thanks.
That's my catch cry. And you need pun intended, a rhinoceros hide. You really do. When people tell you that it cannot be done, just stand back and let them watch while you do it.
Hmm.
But you have to be able to take the battle scars along the way. And if you don't have that sort of intestinal fortitude and determination, maybe it's not for you. If you're tackling a hard subject, you've got to be hard enough to see it through, and it's not easy.
Hmm. So I'm very excited to announce that you'll be doing an Ask Me Anything session in our Stage 32 Filmmaking and Directing Lounge
Mhm.
on Tuesday. But Tuesday for us is a global Tuesday, so it starts early in Australia than it does in all different parts of the world. So you'll be available for 24 hours in a global sense, for exclusively in our Stage 32 Filmmaking and Directing Lounge, where filmmakers from our global community can ask you questions about being a documentarian. And what other kind of questions are you happy to answer?
It's very rarely that I don't respond to a question. So I don't know. Sometimes the response might be no comment. It depends what the question is, Shelley.
Right, right, obviously. Yeah, but I mean, your background is very prolific from authoring. Obviously, you can have you'll be able to talk about film distribution and being able to
Yes.
find them. So you've got a depth and breadth of topics that
Yeah.
our community can ask you about.
I'd really like to say if a little bit. May I give a little bit of a plug?
Yes, absolutely.
So as we prepare for, because we've won a major battle with the House of Commons, but we have not won the war. There are some big battles ahead, and the next one is going to be the House of Lords in the United Kingdom. And lobbying and campaigning and legal advice costs a lot of money, and the other side has extremely deep pockets. So the ways people can help, if you are motivated to help after watching this, is firstly, please watch the film and become informed. And it is only $2.99, and that all helps go to our campaign funds. And it's streaming on Mojo, Mojo
Mhm.
streaming.com, Land of the Free, Out of the Shadows. And I have also committed, I've recently released a novel which has got nothing whatsoever to do with trophy hunting. It's an anthropomorphized dramedy novel about the wildlife on the lake where I live,
Nice. That sounds
predominantly centered around the ruling swans.
uh-huh.
Um, been so well received internationally. It's been likened to Wind in the Willows and Watership Down.
Wow.
People are even saying it's got potential of The Lion King for stage and film. Priscilla wants to turn it into an animated musical feature film, and it's called Swan Song by me, obviously, Lynn Santa, and it's available on Amazon everywhere. And 10% of everything Swan Song makes is going into the campaign to help ban trophy hunting. So there is a connect. Plus, it's just, if I say so myself, it's a delightful, charming novel. Those are the words I'm hearing consistently. And who doesn't want to get a book by Santa for Christmas?
Right.
Ho, ho, ho.
Love it. Perfect
That's my
plug.
plug.
I love it. Perfect plug. Well, Lynn, thank you so much for being here today. For everybody who hasn't joined Stage 32 yet, go to stage32.com, start your profile, and you can dig into our filmmaking and directing lounge and meet Lynn ASAP, as well as all of our other creatives in our global community. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.